Welcome to team training for the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment. Um, with this lesson, we are moving on to sort of a group of special topics in GIS. We've sort of covered all of the basics, or at least the basics that I know about, but I have some special topics that we may end up using in the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment. And one of these is something called geocoding addresses. And this would be part of the data processing effort that we would maybe have to do with some data for the housing study. In particular, we might end up with a table of data that is based on addresses. Like maybe we got something from the county assessor and they don't have a shapefile. They don't use GIS, but they have a list of addresses and then maybe attributes that we're interested in. And so like the address table might look something like this, with a street address, with its number, it's the name of the street, and then the suffix. You can also have like prefixes and other modifying characters, city, state, zip code, that sort of thing. And so if we already have a table that has the reference data, right? It has street addresses and zip codes, and as you'll see here, the reference data is going to be a specialized kind of data where it has the addresses and the suffixes and prefixes all broken out so you can parse it and match. So you're not trying to match exactly this entire address, right? And the way it works is it's pretty simple, really. It does the geocoding process goes through and looks at each address, and then it sees if that address can be matched in the reference data. It wants an exact match, of course, but it's pretty smart, and it can make partial matches as well. And one of the things that you should keep in mind here is the number on the address it's usually specified as an approximation. So you're going to get a dot if you get an address that matches, that's put on the map, right? So like if we have 2846 Central Avenue and it matches, it's going to be put there. And what you're going to find is the streets are broken down into segments, usually one segment for each block. And in those segments, they will list an address range so like in this case, from 2800 to 2892 on one side of the street, and 2801 to 2893 on the other side. And one of the sides of the street is the right side, and the other side is the left side. I forget the convention of which side's which, but it knows which one to look at depending on whether it's an even or odd address. And then what it will do is it will interpolate the position of the dot based on the range, right? So this one's kind of almost halfway in the middle, so it's just going to put it halfway there. And so what you might find is this might produce a little bit of error because lots may not be equally spaced along the line, and so I just want you to be aware of that this is a way to locate addresses and put them on the map. And this is pretty a pretty good method, but it has error, it has estimation involved. You're never going to be able to match all of the addresses. There may just be missing information. You might have post office boxes. Apartments sometimes are problematic because they have like A's and B's and things on the unit numbers. And so it's a good method with limitations. All right, so that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview, and I think you'll learn more as I go through the process. So I'm going to switch over to ArcGIS now, and if I can find it here, it's the last one, of course. There we go. Yeah, all right. So now what you're going to see here for this example, I have a map of Atlanta, Georgia, and it has several layers on the map. So it has the street network, and this is going to be our reference layer. It also has a layer that shows the interstate highways, and a separate layer that has zip codes. And we've highlighted zip code 30308 and 30309. Those are kind of the ones we're interested in. And let's just imagine for this example that we work for like a marketing company, and we're interested in reaching out to our customers here. And we have a table of data that I'm going to open up here called customers. And so there's 16 of them here, and it lists them. Then they got an ID number, a name of the company, and its address, right? This is the important thing. So you can see like 725 Lakeview Avenue Northeast, right? The zip code, we don't have city and state in this example, but we got the address and zip code, and then they have an attribute like what kind of business it is. So what we're going to try to do is match these addresses to the Atlanta Streets reference file. So I'm going to close that down and show you Atlanta Streets attribute table here for a second. And what you're going to see is that it's similar, but the addresses are all broken down. And you need this sort of file if you want precise matches, right? So like, for instance, you could just match with the zip code file and would put a dot for every address that you found in the middle of that zip code. And, that might be good enough for what you need. But if you want to really match addresses, you have to have additional data. And so you can see for each line segment, which represents a street, you've got the left starting address and ending address, and the right starting address and ending address. So these are the ranges. And then prefix, if one exists, prefix type. And so, you say, well, what's a prefix type? So like sometimes you might have like Avenue D. And so like Avenue the D is the name, but the avenue is in front of the name of the street, D, instead of behind it. So they have a field for that. The name of the street, the type, which is usually abbreviated, and this is very important because like most databases, it is looking to try to match exactly. And so, if you have street written out and the reference file is using an abbreviation, probably go in and change that, right? You might have to go in and pre-process that table of customer data if you want better matches. Then we have a suffix field. Then we got the zip code, and we got a left and a right zip code. So it knows if the zip code border is on a street, if there's one side is on one zip code, one side is the other. Now, this reference file has city and state abbreviations, but as we've seen in the customer table, we don't have those, but we can still use that for matching purposes. All right, so in order to do the geoprocessing here, to do the geocoding, we're going to have to set up something called a geolocator or an address locator for our procedure. And to do that, I'm going to open up our catalog over here, and I'm going to go to my data, and I'm going to say, I want to create a new address locator. And it will bring up a dialog box. And the first thing it wants to know is, what kind of address locator style do you want? And if I hit the little plus sign here, I'm sorry, the little folder sign here, it brings up it has like preset types of styles, and there's a bunch of them, gazetteers, but we're really interested in address, and we're interested in dual ranges. That means a range on one side of the street and on the other side of the street. So I'm going to select that one. There we go. And then it needs to know, what's your reference data going to be? And for us, it's going to be Atlanta Streets. And then you'll see down here, it populates the field map. And And what it tries to do is it tries to match up from left to left, right? From right to right with the appropriate field. And in our case, it was able to do that. But if it was having trouble, you can hit the drop down arrow and actually like specify whichever one you want, right? So you can change that if it doesn't figure out the max, or if you have weird names, in your file. And then lastly, it wants to know, what to call this. And I'm gonna call it Geocode 1. And we'll just say save that, and then we should be good to go here. So I'm gonna hit OK. And this will take us a minute to process. We just have to be patient here while it goes through and processes. And then at the end down here, we get a little indicator down the right corner there. Create address locator was successful. Okay. So now we are ready to do our matching process, right? And to do that, we need the toolbar. So we go to Customize Toolbars, and we select Geocoding, and it brings up this little toolbar here. And it came in with Geocode 1 selected as the address locator. Now there's a couple of default ArcGIS ones here available. But we could also click manage the address locators, and we could add them if they don't already exist. Like if I hit add, you can go searching for them and find the ones that you want, right? Let's see if I just go find that one. There we go, Geocode 1, right? Now it actually added it again. We've got it once. It doesn't really matter. As long as we choose one of the geocodes. All right. So now that's what it's going to use to do our matching. And with that all set to go, the first thing I want to do is just kind of show you a neat little feature. If you just want to find a random address, or you need to locate something quickly, if you hit the little binoculars here on your navigation toolbar, you can get find, and one of the tabs here is locations, right? And so if we're using Geocode 1, we can type in an address. So let's try 1171 Piedmont Avenue, right? Show all the candidates and use the map extent, right? Let's see if we can do a find. Hey, it found one, right? And it will, if we click on it there, I'll do it again. You'll see it'll locate it for you, and it's got a match score. And I'm going to talk about this in a second, but it will assign a match based on how accurately it was able to match everything. And what you can see here is we got 92.43, and I think the reason we didn't get 100 is that we didn't include the zip code. Right. And so if I do include the zip code, let's see what we get here. Oh, and maybe, actually, I think maybe it was because I left off the Northeast. Let's try that. There we go. And so, now we've got two possible matches, and they're both the same here, but you can click on them and you'll see they're both the same. But we want the one that is 100, right? If you get two and one's 100 and one's 50 or something, you most likely want the one that is 100. So anyway, that's just a feature to find a location. Then once you find it, you can right click on it and then say, okay, add a point or add to my places. And it drops a point down there. I'm going to close that. This is not a piece of annotation or something in a shape file. It's just a point element, right? So I can select it. If I want to get rid of it, I just hit delete. Okay. So, that's a useful tool especially if you're looking for something to search for. But what you're really probably more interested in is doing actual geocoding of the entire list of customers in the database. So I'm going to click here on the geocode addresses. Looks like a little mailbox here. And we're going to use geocode 1 for the address locator. Okay. And then it brings up this dialog box, and it says, okay, we're going to use multiple fields, and here are the fields we are going to use. For street or intersection, we're going to use the address field. Now, these are the fields in customers, right? Address table customers. There's no city or state. Now we could specify one, but we don't have any. And then we're going to use zip for zip code. And we're going to create a static snapshot of the table inside a new feature class, okay? And then it wants to know where to save this new feature class. Okay, well, so we will just call this geocoding 1. And then we should be good to go. And when you hit OK here, it's going to start geocoding. Now, before I do that, I just want to show you here that you can hit geocoding options. And this will let you set some things if you want. So one of the things you can do is you can use a place name alias table. This is a table that, like, if for instance we were using neighborhoods, if neighborhoods was one of our fields, we could assign the neighborhoods to a particular place, right? So like Brookside, if you see Brookside, put it in Tulsa, kind of thing. Or if you see Cherry Street, it's really 15th Street, right? You can also set the sensitivity for the matching, so you can tell it if it scores higher than 80 on spelling, it's a match. If it doesn't, it fails, right? And then here's a minimum score, and here's a minimum match score, right? Minimum candidate score to consider, and then for a match, right? And so you can control these. And a lot of times, I get asked, well, like, what should they be set at? And it really, there's not a good answer for that, right? It's sort of, these are the defaults, but it just depends on what kind of error you can put up with, and what kind of sensitivity you can put up with. There's some other things here too, but those are kind of the main ones. All right, let's hit OK, and then let's hit OK again and see what we get. And so what it does is it runs through and tries to match. And in this case, we had 13 match, 81% of the addresses matched. There were no ties. So sometimes you end up, with an address that there's more than one match and they're tied in their score. And if they don't tie, they'll select the best match and put it in the matched folder. Then you get unmatched, and we got 3 of those, right? And so it's not uncommon for that to happen. So then we're going to just close that. And what it does is it adds the geocoding result, which is a point shapefile, to our map. And you can see the little dots here down here on the map. If I open the attribute table, you'll see here that it tells us the status, whether it's matched or unmatched. It gives a matching score. It shows the match address, and then it shows what it was matching to, okay, in terms of the different fields that are used in both the reference file and in the customer file. So it gives some other things too, like which are real handy, like the latitude and longitude is determined, and of course, it also includes the attributes, right? Like the name of the business and the type of business that it is. So this is a really great tool. If you have something that is a table of addresses, but you don't have a shapefile for it. All right. So there's one more feature to this that I want to show you. And that is the rematch process. And so we had some addresses that didn't match. And so if I right click over here on review and rematch addresses, it's going to bring up a dialog box, looks something like this. And right now it's showing the unmatched addresses. I can say all addresses, so it'll show. I'm going to make this a little bigger too, maybe. If it'll, there you go. So you can kind of see more of it, right? But you can see this is basically the attribute table we were just looking at. And it's showing us all 16 points. So even if it's unmatched, right, it creates an entry, a field, or a tuple in the attribute table. And, I can filter this, and I'm just going to say, so I can do it like I can look at, matched addresses, matches with scores below 80. Here, I'm interested in the ones that didn't match at all. And so I've got 3 of them here, and you can click on each one and you can see this one has a candidate 83.35, but it is, so 751 Juniper, but it's under 85, so that's why it's still unmatched. I can do a search here to see if there's any other ones, or I can just say that's close enough for me, and so I'm going to match that, right? I can go down, and so now it's changed to match, right? And then you can override things. Now here's 844 Myrtle, but here's the thing with this one: Myrtle's misspelled. This is Myrtle like Crepe Myrtle Street, right? And so I'm going to change that in my little query box over here, and I'm going to search. There we go. I got 100% match. I'm going to match that, right? So you can correct things, if you are in a situation where you don't, if you recognize you might have a misspelling or something's not quite right. This last one, there's no matches, and one of the things you might try, particularly like if like our customers are all in 308 or 309, maybe I got the wrong zip code here. Let's search for that. Oh, yep, there we go. And so I can match that, right? So this is really handy. And so now we've gone to 100% match. Now, if you've got thousands of addresses, this might get a little tedious, okay? Or if you are not familiar with the area, it might be hard for you to make some decisions. Another thing I'll point out, I'm not going to do it right here, but you can pick address from a map. So like if you know where something is located and it doesn't have a match, but you know where it is, you can go and just pick it and specify it on them right on the map. So I'm going to hit close there, and it adds all the matches back in. And you can do this. You can go through the matching process more than once if you are so inclined. Anyway, that's geocoding, and I'm not sure if we'll use it in our project or not, but it's a possibility. So, in some of these other special topics, lessons coming up, we'll probably talk about network analyst and clusters using heat maps to analyze clustering and density and that sort of thing. So stay tuned.